عليكم السلام. الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Amma ba'd, we are continuing and with the aid of Allah the Exalted today concluding our study of the work entitled Bulugh al-Maram, Attainment of the Objective, as this work has been authored by the esteemed scholar Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. May Allah the Exalted bestow expansive mercy upon his soul. And particularly, we have entered into the final section of this work entitled Kitab al-Jami', entitled the Comprehensive Book. And we have entered into a study of the first chapter of this book that is entitled Babul Adab, the chapter of ethics, the chapter of adab. And we're coming around to our final hadith, our final prophetic traditions. And we come into the hadith as the text states, وعن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, and on the authority of Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him and his father, in that he states that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم has said, لا ينظر الله إلى من جر ثوبه خيلاء متفق عليه. Allah does not look at the individual who pulls or drags his garments out of pride, out of arrogance. This hadith is muttafaqun alayhi. This hadith is agreed upon, and majority of this hadith we have explained, but there are still some issues pending before moving on to the next narration. So we'll discuss them. Firstly, this hadith is muttafaqun alayhi. This hadith is agreed upon, and the phraseology muttafaqun alayhi, the phraseology agreed upon, when scholarship states this, what scholarship means by this is that this hadith has been recorded by al-Bukhari and Muslim in their two sahihs, either with the exact wordage or with the meaning. And those ahadith that are agreed upon between al-Bukhari and Muslim are more in number in their wordage, or excuse me, they are more in number in their meaning than they are in their wordage. And there are those among scholarship who present some more particulars. For example, what we have just presented suffices the fuqaha, it suffices jurists. There are those amongst hadith scholarship, though, that they would also state that an agreed upon hadith is also a hadith that has the same narrator in al-Bukhari and Muslim as well. Now, this phraseology is important because a hadith that is muttafaqun alayhi, a hadith that is agreed upon by al-Bukhari and Muslim, it is the highest quality of a sound hadith that we have. Muttafaq alayhi, it is the highest level of a sahih hadith. Sahih is a sound, acceptable hadith. It is a healthy hadith. And but even within that, there are degrees within it. Right? There are degrees within it. And in fact, there are 7. There are 7 levels of quality with regards to a sahih hadith. A hadith that is sahih is already sound, is already acceptable. We will act in accordance with it. But even with that, there are levels. For example, a person may have the grade of an A. You pass with flying colors. Some people may have an A plus. Some people may have an A minus. It's all an A. But even within an A grade, there are levels within that, right? This is what we're discussing now. So the highest level of a sahih hadith is a hadith that has been collected by al-Bukhari as well as Muslim, number 1. Number 2, a hadith that is reported by al-Bukhari by himself. Number 3, a hadith that has been reported by Muslim by himself. Number 4, a hadith, and these are all sahih. Number 4, a hadith that is of the level and quality of a hadith that is agreed upon by al-Bukhari and Muslim. However, it has not been collected by al-Bukhari and Muslim. Okay, in the form of hadith that is muttafaqun alayh. Number 5, a hadith that meets the criteria of al-Bukhari, but hasn't been recorded by al-Bukhari. Number 6, a hadith that meets the criteria of Muslim, but hasn't been recorded or collected by Muslim. Number 7, any other hadith that is sahih that is lower than that level. Okay, so this is just to give some background when we hear the term of muttafaqun alayhi, agreed upon, what's actually kind of going on there. But getting back to the hadith and our commentary concerning this hadith, it has been collected by Tabari, rahimahullah. It's a Tabari, passes in the year 310 on Amr ibn, and within it states that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam placed 4 fingers beneath the knee of Amr, and then he states, "Ya Amr, hadha mawdi' al-izar." This is the length of which your izar should be. This is the length of your lower garment. And if you take your 4 fingers and put them below your knee, you're going to be about mid-shank or so, right? About a mid-shank. Then he took his 4 fingers again, placing it beneath that 4 fingers. And he states, Ya Amr, hadha mawdi' al-izar. And he states, "Oh Amr, this is the length of your izar. This is the length of your garment." And if you do that, you're going to be coming even closer, right, to your ankle at that point in time, lower shin. This hadith, it's rijal or thiqat. This hadith, it's men, they are credible, they are thiqa, they are reliable. And as for anything that is other than a thob or an izar, as for the hukum, the verdict on anything that is other than your garment, your izar, your garment and your izar, your thob and your izar, then it takes the same ruling as the 2 of them. Then it will take the same ruling as the 2 of them. And we see this in what Shu'bah asks of Muharib ibn Dithar, as Shu'bah states, questioning the izar. And he states, meaning asking about this hadith because it mentions the word izar specifically, right? So he's asking about it. Asking about this. Does this only mean the izar? And he states, this is not particular to an izar or a shirt. The intent by way of this expression is a garment, and a garment includes an izar as well as other than an izar. And previously we discussed last week, the izar is like the bottom half of your thobe, right? The bottom garment of your thobe going downward from that point. And it has been collected by Ahlus Sunan. It has been collected by the people of the Sunan, another term here. When you hear the term Ahlus Sunan, Ashabus Sunan, the people of the Sunan, the companions of the Sunan, this means 4 collections. It means Abu Dawood, At-Tirmidhi, An-Nasa'i, and Ibn Majah. These 4 collections of hadith. It has been collected by Ahlus Sunan, the people of the Sunan, excluding At-Tirmidhi though, so meaning 3, meaning Abu Dawood, and Nasa'i, and Ibn Majah. On Ibn Umar, on his father, meaning on Umar, radiallahu anhuma, on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he states, "Al-isbal fil izar wal qamis wal imama من جر منها شيء خيلاء لم ينظر الله إليه يوم القيامة." Isbal, and isbal is for the garments to be below the ankles. Isbal includes the izar, which we've discussed, we know what that is, the qamis, shirt, imama, and the turban. And whoever drags any one thing from them, khuyala'a, out of pride, again, the stipulation here is mentioned, pride again, Allah will not look at him on the day of resurrection. Allah will not peer at him on the day of resurrection. And this is even if within the isnad, within the chain of transmission, we have Abdul Aziz ibn Abi Ruwad, and fihi maqal. Hadith scholars speak about his credibility. some stating this, some stating that, some stating okay, some stating not okay. Even but Paul, he states that the isbal of the imama, the isbal of the turban, that what is ended by it is the tail of the turban, the tail of the end of the turban. And this is when it increases upon a length, he states, زائد على ما جرت به العادة. He states this is when it is lengthier than what is customary. This is when it is lengthier than what is customary, what is socially and culturally the norm. And this leads us back into one of the universal principles of law that we've mentioned before, al-ada muhakkama. Culture is a judge. There are circumstances where culture can be an evidence in Islam. It's not step one, but there are circumstances when culture can be an evidence. And generally speaking, we find this scenario when the legislation, the Sharia, when our law has given a commandment without specifying the particulars of the commandment. For example, an individual uh, travels, and we have laws concerning travel, right? Combining, shortening prayers, right? Depending on the size of the group, you shouldn't be traveling alone. If you have a group, you should choose a leader for the group. Things we know about travel, right? But what exactly is the distance for traveling that Allah has specified in the book or the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has specified in the Sunnah by word? It's not there. So then, what becomes the distance for traveling when these laws become in effect? Returns back to the cultural norms of the people in that time and that place. Culture becomes a judge, right, in the scenario. What do the people in that time and that place typically consider to be traveling, right? Okay. So likewise, what is the norm customarily and culturally for the length of a turban, the tail of a turban? It has been collected by An-Nasa'i from the hadith of Amr ibn Umayyah, in that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he would wear the end of his turban or the tail of his turban hanging between his two shoulders, hanging between his two shoulders. So you've seen the turban wrapped and the tail comes from hanging behind the back, right? His tail would hang between the back of his two shoulders in the middle there, right? Okay. And likewise, with regards to the length of the sleeves of a shirt, increasing upon what is mu'tad, increasing upon the ada, increasing upon what is culturally and socially the norm. You follow that? And for us, we can say that the norm with regards to us and our culture with sleeves is that the sleeve typically will come to about the wrist. That's what's culturally acceptable, right? And if you see an individual with the sleeve hanging down and such, it's going to be right. This is beyond what is culturally acceptable, typically. Okay, so now culture is a judge in that particular issue. And he states, and he's citing what was the culturally acceptable at that time, as has occurred with the people of Hijaz. People of Hijaz, think modern day Saudi Arabia, the Hijaz, the Arabian Peninsula, and we'll say we'll strike an example here. For example, all thiyab are not created equal, right? There are different types of thobes, okay? And if we are connoisseurs and pay attention to the particulars, you can actually look at a thobe. At times, it can even tell where it was made or what country or culture is seeking to mimic. Something that is customary of Kuwaiti culture, as today you can't see it because of the sweater that we have on, but this is a Kuwaiti style thobe, right? Typically, I'll be wearing Kuwaiti style thiyab, and what's typical for them though is that they'll wear their sleeve at about half of their hand, right? About half of their hand will be covered with their thobe when they have their hands naturally down. And it's been cited by Al-Qadi Iyad, rahimahullah, on scholarship, the karaha, the discouragement, and the dislike, it being makruh, of increasing upon the ad, going further than what is culturally acceptable, that this is not makruh. So, for example, if a person were to wear the turban, the tail of the turban beyond what is culturally the norm and acceptable, that's makruh. If a person wears the sleeves beyond which is culturally acceptable, that's now makruh, for example. And as such, we look to our clothing as well with regards to the length of our clothing and with regards to how wide or how baggy and loose our clothing is as well. We look to culture as a guide here. San'ani rahimahullah, he mentions something interesting here. And he states, yanbaghi, it is appropriate. And when scholarship states it is appropriate, what they mean by this is istihbab, mustahab, that this is now optimal or encouraged. He states it is appropriate concerning the what is considered mu'tad, what is considered culturally the norm, is that it is in alignment with what was culturally the norm during the era of prophethood, meaning during the time period of the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And a brief point to mention here concerning this principle on culture, because we're mentioning it, um, it means that which is culturally the norm amongst a given people in a given time period. Amongst a given people in a given time period. This is what that means. Okay. So, for example, the people in America, in this place and in this time generally, was culturally the norm. There are those among scholarship that would look at this principle and they would further restrict it, and they wouldn't say the people generally. There are some among scholarship that would say amongst the Muslims of that time in that place, not just the people of that time in that place. Although the majority of scholarship would just say the people broadly. A San'ani is stating that it is mustahab. It is appropriate, though, that what we're aiming for is to be in alignment with that which occurred or existed during the era of the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Next hadith. And on him, meaning on the authority of Ibn Umar, radiallahu anhuma, in that the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, has stated, إذا أكل أحدكم فليأكل بيمينه وإذا شرب فيشرب بيمينه فإن الشيطان يأكل بشماله ويشرب بشماله أخرجه مسلم. uh, when one of you eats, then he should eat with his right. And when one of you drinks, he should drink with his right. For certainly Satan, he eats with his shimal, he eats with his left, and he drinks with his shimal. He drinks with his left. And just a linguistic point here, the term for the left is shimal, with a kasra under the sheen. If we place a fetha over the sheen and state shamal, that's the word for north. Shamal, north, shimal, left. This hadith is collected by Muslim. The hadith here is evidence of the tahrim, of it being unlawful, haram, to eat and drink with the left. Yet, we look into this hadith and we see the illah, the justification for the ruling within this hadith, the reason for it being the action of shaitan and the nature of shaitan, the action and the nature of Satan. And the Muslim has been ordered to abstain from any of the ways, any of the ways of the people of fusuq, the people of fisk. Fisk or a fasiq is a delinquent, right? A delinquent, meaning a person that is not just a person that sins. Right? We all sin. We all get it wrong at times. A person that openly sins. You know, people that they just openly sin and they don't care or they don't mind, or they may even boast and be proud to be disobeying Allah. This is the fasiq. Not just anyone that commits a sin, major or minor, not just anyone. But there are people that they openly sin. This is a fasiq, right? A delinquent. And as Muslims, we have been ordered to abstain from the ways of the people who are delinquents, people of fisk, not to mention, even more than that, abstaining from the ways of shaitan, from the ways of of Satan. And with this, the Jumhur, the majority of scholarship, has taken the view, though, that it is mustahab, that it is encouraged. You are rewarded by Allah if you eat and drink with the right, but you're not sinful if you don't do it, though. So stating this, drinking and eating with the left is not something that is muharram. It's not haram. It's not something that is unlawful or sinful, but it's something that we should not do, something that is discouraged to do within our faith practice. Nafi', he has increased upon this, and he includes within this taking and giving, meaning that we shall also take and receive with the right, and it is discouraged to take and receive with the left. And next hadith, and it is our final hadith. وعن عمر بن شعيب عن أبيه عن جده قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. And on the authority of Amr ibn Shu'aib, on his father, on his grandfather, as he states, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, "Kul washrab walbas وتصدق في غير صرف ولا مخيلة." أخرجه أبو داود وأحمد وعلقه البخاري. Eat, drink, dress, wear clothes, and give in charity without being excessive and without arrogance. Do it, but don't be overly excessive. Don't be wasteful. Don't be arrogant. Collected by Abu Dawood, Ahmed, and Al-Bukhari in a form of a hadith that is mu'allaq. This, I believe, will be our last hadith term that we'll be discussing in this particular study. Again, we've heard of a hadith that is sahih, hasan, or da'if, a hadith that is sound, fair, or fragile. Have we ever heard of a hadith that is mu'allaq? The term a hadith mu'allaq before. If we translate the word mu'allaq, mu'allaq means suspended. So a hadith that is mu'allaq is a suspended hadith. A suspended hadith. How can a hadith be suspended? What does that mean? Well, we know by definition that a hadith has two components. It has an isnad and a matan. There's a chain of transmission, and there's a text. So-and-so reported on so-and-so reported on so-and-so that the Prophet ﷺ said. That's a chain. And then we have the text, what the Prophet ﷺ actually said or did. Okay. A hadith that is mu'allaq is actually the most common way of conveying a hadith, and it's the way that most common Muslims, it is the way that the laity, as it were, conveys hadith. They'll just state, the Prophet ﷺ said, the Prophet ﷺ did, right? When you say that, you are omitting the entire of the isnad. You're omitting the entire of the chain of transmission. You're omitting it. You're not mentioning the chain of transmission, right? So when you convey a hadith without mentioning the chain of transmission, that's what a hadith mu'allaq is. That's what a suspended hadith is, okay? So the way that most of us convey hadith, we're conveying it in a form that's mu'allaq. We're conveying it in a form that is suspended, okay? Now, doesn't mean that a chain isn't there. It just means that we're stating it without the chain, okay? Now, when this is important relative to Al-Bukhari in his Sahih, because when we say Sahih Bukhari, and everything inside of it is sound and things of that nature, we need to know what that means. We're stating that the ahadith, traditions that Al-Bukhari collected and intended for them to be a part of his Sahih, this is what is meant by Sahih al-Bukhari. Okay? Meaning those ahadith that are at the highest level of authenticity and acceptability. Not necessarily every single word that's inside of the book, though. Those ahadith that he intended and collected for that purpose. So, for example, this doesn't include the title headings, the titles of the books and the chapters inside of Sahih al-Bukhari. It doesn't include the supporting narrations that he may have to support the hadith that he intends. Okay? Like footnotes. Doesn't include that. And Bukhari's quote unquote footnotes inside of his Sahih are often hadith that are mu'allaq, suspended hadith. He'll mention them in support of the hadith that he's actually mentioning as a part of his Sahih. Those hadith that are mu'allaq are not at the level of his criteria for his Sahih. He's just mentioning it to support what's at the level of we intended for his Sahih. Does that make sense? Okay. Um, no different than it. We'll do a brief and a small exercise here. Would you mind handing me a? Is that a mushaf that you have there? No. Hand me a mushaf. The term mushaf means what? When you say mushaf, what does that mean? The term mushaf, it means the Quran, right? It means the Quran, right? It is the book that we read the Quran and recite the Quran and memorize the Quran from, right? But the Quran itself is a speech of Allah, right? Those pages that contain that, we call them mushaf. Okay? We you having trouble? No, that's not it. No. Do me a favor. Okay, go straight back to this table right here. I'll make it easy for you. Huh? Right there. Right in front of you. Appreciate you, my brother. So when we speak to the Quran in the speech of Allah, what are we talking to? What are we talking about? When you say Quran, what do we mean by that? You mean the verses of the Quran? Yes, no? Okay. Now this is the verses of Allah. We go with that. So this is the Mus'haf. Yes, no? We agree? Mus'haf. Okay. Now, when we open this up, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We open this up, okay. We have opening pages and title pages. Is this the speech of Allah? No, it's the Mus'haf though, right? So it's in support, right? It's in support of, but it is not the. Yes, no? It's the Mus'haf. Okay, good. So, for example, a person may see, you see these numbers that are here, 1, 2, 3. Is that actually the Quran itself? It's Mus'haf, right? So we say Mus'haf, right? But it's not actually, right? Not actually all of that the speech of Allah. There are these things that are here to assist us in understanding, memorizing Allah's speech, right? But not actually of. We can even go to the back, right? We did the front, we open up a page inside. Oh, what is this? So now we see we have contents, right? Contents pages. Is this the speech of Allah? Is this the Quran? No, but this is the Mus'haf. You follow? Likewise, Al-Bukhari in the Sahih. So he has other things that are there that are supporting the hadith that he collected and intended to be of a Sahih. Okay? From those things that he has utilized to support, often hadith mu'allaq, a suspended hadith. Okay? So, but the suspended hadith is not the same level of authenticity as the hadith that he has collected for his Sahih. Okay? Just so we understand that particular point. Getting back to our hadith in discussion, though, this hadith is indicative of the tahrim of israf. It is indicative of the unlawfulness of excessiveness, wastefulness, and extravagance in eating, drinking, dress, and giving of charity. And how much is excessive? At what point does it become wasteful? At what point is it extravagance? That's subjective, right? That's subjective. Maybe what is wasteful for me may not be wasteful for you because you just have so much and I have so little, right? That for you it's not considered wasteful, but if I were to let that go to be, we see? Okay. And in reality, what is considered israf or being excessive or wasteful or extravagant is to surpass the limit in every action and statement, and to be full in spending is what is most common. Right? What is most common, right? There are people that are wasteful in their spending. But we have so much abundance now. Sanani rahimahullah is stating this, and he's living in Yemen 400 years ago, right? In this postmodern world, we have so much today that excess is not just in spending now. Excess can be in clothing, excess can be in eating, excess can be in so many things because we just have so much in this first world country that we live in. And it is within this hadith is understood and extracted from the statement of Allah the Exalted that has come in the chapter out of verse number 31. وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. Eat, drink, but don't be wasteful. Don't be excessive. Don't be extravagant. And within this, we also see a prohibition that is haram and unlawful. Have la and kibr, have arrogance and pride, right? Because often people that are arrogant and pride, they want to show that it means nothing to them. So then they just waste it, right? They just waste it, right? And even though it's starting to get a bit outdated now, right? People say make it rain and things like that, right? It's being wasteful. It means nothing to me. I have so much, right? This people do these things out of arrogance, right? Out of arrogance. You follow? Okay. Abdul Latif al-Baghdadi, rahimahullah, he states, this hadith, what it encompasses is the virtue of a human being managing the self. It is virtuous for a human being to be able to control and manage the self. And within this, we see the virtue that self-management and self-control will have on the body of the individual for this life as well as for the hereafter. And as for being excessive or extravagant, then this can occur within everything that can be harmful to the body or harmful to one's lifestyle. Meaning what? Meaning when we are excessive with things, if you are excessive in your eating and your drinking, for example, this is something that can be harmful to the self, harmful to the body, right? And it can harm an individual in this life as well as the life quality of the individual. So Islam cares about your lifestyle and your life quality, and Islam wants it to be optimal as well. So because of that, we're mindful and we look to manage the self. And when we overdo this, then this can lead us to wastage. This can lead us to harm of oneself and other than oneself. And when we have these harmful activities like this, they can often be harmful to the body most of the time. And as for arrogance, then arrogance, it is harmful to the self because typically the person that is arrogant, this person can be stricken or can acquire ujub, self-amazement. Arrogance leads to self-amazement, right? We typically call it conceited, right? Leads to self-amazement, right? And just so that we're clear, arrogance is something that is different from confidence and dignity. Two different things. So Islam encourages us to be confident and carry ourselves with dignity, but that doesn't mean that you look down upon others or you think yourself to be better than someone else, or someone else is beneath you or has no value. No, Islam is not saying that. That is arrogance. And this is something that is harmful, this arrogance, to one's hereafter because it's sinful. A person will enter into paradise that has a mustard seed of arrogance inside of the heart. And in the worldly life, in this life, a person that is arrogant, people typically find this person to be distasteful, despicable. And people don't want to be around somebody that is arrogant, right? And conceited. Okay. Al-Bukhari, he records in the form of a hadith that is mu'allaq, in the form of a hadith that is suspended or narration that is suspended, and we know what that means now, on Ibn Abbas, as it states, eat what you want and drink what you want, so long as you do not make the two errors, the two mistakes, sarf and makhila, being extravagant, excessive, and arrogant. Being excessive and being arrogant. And with this, this actually concludes our study. We ask Allah that He places blessing within what we've been able to achieve over the course of these past couple of months or so together. We will continue. We will now discontinue our study on Thursday because it seems like we're in a bit of a time crunch between the prayers now. But we will continue our Sunday study at 11 a.m. and we will begin a study of Kitab al-Siyam, the book of fasting, Sunday at 11, inshallah ta'ala. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على Muhammad. Questions? Going once. Yes? Yes, Friday, 4:30 now. All right, 4:30, because ours is at 4 o'clock, 4:30. Questions? Go ahead. Please.
It's not a sin if you eat with your left hand, but you should eat with your right. I'm asking because I'm left-handed.
Okay.
I ain't gonna say it's a struggle.
Mhm.
I make intentions to use my right hand.
Sure.
Sometimes I find myself
Right, out of habit. Yeah, the question is asking, just to reiterate the hukm, the verdict on eating with the left hand, because he in fact is left-handed. You know, they say left-handed people are smarter than us right-handers, huh? Yeah, so yes, the verdict on eating with the left hand is that it is makruh, is that it is discouraged. It is something that Allah is displeased with. However, there's no sin for that. Eating with the right hand is mustahab. It is encouraged, meaning that there's a reward for doing so. However, if a person didn't do so, the person's not sinning, right? And as for those things that are done out of just habit, or forgetting or not being mindful, then these are things that are overlooked in our legislation anyway, right? MashaAllah. Barakallahu feekum. So we'll do it again Sunday, inshallah.
I know they hit mine.